29 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason, and we are moving on to the San Jose State Spartans. This team had a breakout year in 2020, but a season ago in 2021, it just did not end the same way. In fact, this team even missed out on a bowl game a season ago. And when you look at this team, well, Brent Brennan still being that head coach, one of my more favorite head coaches in the country. I like his passion, like his energy. But when you take a look at the San Jose State team, there's a lot of offensive talent leaving, some good defensive talent leaving as well. But you know what? There are transfers coming in, lots of talent coming back. It's a San Jose State team that should still be competitive in the Mountain West Conference. So will the Spartans find themselves back in a bowl game in 2022? Or will the Spartans start to take a nosedive back down towards the bottom of the Mountain West? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nathan. Welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And to fans of the San Jose State Spartans out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, whatever have you, leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to hear what you guys have to say. So let's talk about San Jose State in 2022, my 6th-ranked team in the Mountain West Conference coming into the 2022 college football season. Again, a breakout year in 2020. Was supposed to follow up with another good year in 2021, but it did not happen that way. They were 5-7, 3-5 in conference, just missed out on a spot in a bowl game. And the offensive numbers last year were not great for San Jose State. Only 340 yards per game with around 20 points per game. You got to get this offense turned around back towards what it was in 2020. Otherwise, defensively, this was a solid football team. 371 yards per game with around 26.5 points per game. So improve the little things on defense, but the offense clearly has got to get better for the San Jose State Spartans. And taking a look at what they lost from a season ago, well, there are a lot of key losses on both sides of the ball. But starting with the offensive end, as usual, and starting with the quarterback position, Nick Starkel, who was one of their breakout players in 2020, just did not have that great of a year in 2021. 1,645 yards, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 51% completion percentage. He struggled last season, but he is off of the team. I think we know what kind of player Nick Starkel could have been for this team a season ago. And he looked like that at times, but overall was not a great year for Starkel. You do lose, in my opinion, the best quarterback out of that room, though. You also lose the best running back, in my opinion, out of that room, and Tyler Nevins. And that was shown by his leading rush season last year for this team. Did lead them in rushing yards. I explained that horribly. I apologize. 167 attempts, 754 yards, and 7 touchdowns for Tyler Nevins a season ago. In the wide receiver room, well, you lose a couple of depth pieces there. So you lose Isaiah Holiness, who only had 35 yards, and Jamar Simpson, who had 21 yards on the receiving end a year ago. But where your big receiving target leaves is Derek DeZee. 730 yards, 4 touchdowns a season ago for him. So losing his production is going to hurt this team. He was that lead target last year, in my opinion, the best player out of this wide receiver / tight end room. And you lose him off of this team, as well as an offensive lineman in Jack Snyder. But Derek DeZee, a name that is going to be leaving this team. Also, defensively, let's look at some defensive talent. EJ Ane, however you pronounce that last name. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce names. He was a double-digit tackler last year, 12 tackles, 2 sacks a season ago. Couple linebackers, key pieces in the linebacker room leaving. Hadari Darden with 30 tackles and a sack, and Tyson Parker, who had 28 tackles and an interception a season ago. And in the defensive back position, you had Jay Leonard, who was tied for your second leading tackler on this team last season. 72 tackles with 2 sacks, threw a pick in there as well, just for some good measure. Bobby Brown, who led the team with 12 passes defended a season ago. You lose him, as well as a depth guy in Malik Welch. So some names are leaving the San Jose State football team, that is for sure. But when you look at talents coming back, looking at the quarterback room first, you do have Nick Nash coming back. Now, he got some playing time last year. 971 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Had a little bit better of a completion percentage than Nick Starkel in about 100 or so fewer passing attempts. So Nick Nash was probably going to figure to be that starting quarterback coming into this year, but not so fast, friends. A name by Siobhan Cordero is coming into this team. If you don't recognize that name, he was the old starter at Hawaii. I talked about him in my Hawaii video, transferring over this year from the Rainbow Warriors over to the Spartans. And I do believe he's going to be that starting quarterback this year, as well as many other people in the country believe that Cordero is going to be that starting quarterback for the San Jose State team. And I feel like if Cordero can fix some mechanical things, make some better decisions, you got yourself a 3,000-yard passer here on the San Jose State football team. And around him are a pretty solid skills core. Kerry Robinson, who had 280 yards and a touchdown last year, was the third leading rusher behind, of course, Evans, and then Nick Nash, who had 385 yards and a touchdown last year on the ground. So Robinson comes back. You also have another name in Shamar Garrett. That's coming back in the running back room there as well. He, of course, is not on the list. When you take a look at wide receivers coming back, well, you have Isaiah Hamilton coming back for this team, had 414 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a couple of transfers over from Nevada. A lot of talent leaving that Nevada wide receiver room. You have Elijah Cooks and Justin Lockhart, who are a couple names that come over from Nevada, figure to play pretty key roles for this San Jose State team. Otherwise, you do have Charles Ross coming back, had 305 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then also, Jermaine Braddock comes back as well, 390 yards and 2 touchdowns for him a season ago. And that tight end this year to replace Disease should be Dominic Mazzotti. When you look elsewhere defensively, well, a couple key pieces come back on the defensive line, and a couple sneaky NFL caliber players. Viliami Fehoko and Cade Hall coming back on the defensive line. Both of them over 35 tackles. Fehoko had 7 sacks, Cade Hall had 4 sacks with 3 more tackles than Fehoko last year. Also, Trey Smith coming back on the defensive line, so that's a big get back there. He had 3 sacks a season ago. Linebackers Kyle Harmon and Alili Matau are coming back. So Kyle Harmon had 134 tackles for this team last year. You get all that production back. And then Matau had 51 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 passes defended for the team a season ago. Nehemiah Shelton coming back for this team, had 9 passes defended, 2 interceptions, which led the team with the 2 picks, along with some guys like Trey Jenkins and Kenyon Reed are a couple names coming back on this defensive back group that I would watch out for. So lots of talent coming back for this team. It's a San Jose State team that I feel like should be competitive. But when we take a look at the schedule here, there are a lot of tricky games that they have to make their way through. But this is a very doable schedule to get back to a bowl game. So let's dive into it. At home against Portland State on a Thursday night to open up the season. Probably should end up being a win there. Fun fact, old defensive lineman E.J. Ane transferred over to the Portland State team. So he'll be back facing his former club. Then you got to go on the road, play Auburn and Jordan Hare. Probably don't have much of a shot there to win that one. Auburn, going to be a pretty solid team this year. Then you got a home game against Western Michigan after the bye week. Yeah, this team has a bye week in week 3. So a real early bye week could lead to some things maybe not working out the way some people think. But also, when you take a look elsewhere non-conference, again, as I mentioned, Western Michigan, that could be a tricky game. I know Western Michigan's losing a lot, including wide receiver Sky Moore, but I still like a lot of pieces there on Western Michigan. And then you have to go a little bit down the line to find out they go on the road to play New Mexico State. When you get into conference play, home games against UNLV, Nevada, Colorado State, and Hawaii to cap off the year, and games on the road against Fresno State, Wyoming, before Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State. So kind of diving into this schedule here a little bit. Again, Portland State should be a pretty solid win. I even think on the road against New Mexico State should be a win there. Again, on the road at Auburn, that's going to be a really tough game to win. You got to go on the road and play in Jordan Hare. I don't necessarily like their chances in that one. And then you got the home game against Western Michigan there. So for Western Michigan, again, losing a lot of talent. How do they factor into the Mid-American Conference this upcoming season? I feel like it's a team that could be competitive right around bowl eligibility there. San Jose State does get them at home, so I'm slightly leaning towards the Spartans, but that's going to be an interesting game to watch there. When you look in conference play now, there are a lot of tricky conference games. You got to go on the road to play 3 of the better teams in this conference. You got to go on the road to play Fresno State, and I think what could end up being the best team in this conference. They're getting Jake Haener back, Jalen Cropper. I know their head coach is not coming back, but that's still going to be a solid Fresno State team. San Diego State, we know how good their defense has been for so many years under Brady Hoke. On the road against Utah State, the reigning Mountain West champs. I know that team loses a lot. Still going to be a tough team to play. And their home schedule is fairly favorable. I mean, you got Hawaii at home. You know how much that team loses from a season ago. UNLV, and while I feel like UNLV is starting to take steps up, they're not quite towards the bowl game level quite yet. Nevada loses a lot off that team. Colorado State gets a lot on that team. That's going to be a very competitive game there. And then the game I haven't mentioned yet, on the road at Wyoming. Look, the Cowboys pull off an upset or two every year in Mountain West play. Very well could see an upset pulled in that game right there. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook. Tell me predict the team's record. So if the game is in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game is in orange, I still don't see you winning. But it is college football, and upsets can happen. Yellow, your 50-50 high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. And games in green, I have you winning. So Portland State probably should be a pretty simple win there in week 1. Auburn, I don't see them really doing anything surprising on the road in Jordan-Hare. I think Auburn's going to be able to win that game there. So San Jose State, you start out 1-1 going into the bye week. I think that's the best case scenario. I don't see you dropping the game to Portland State, and I don't see you winning that game at Auburn. So 1-1 into the bye week, I think is more than already set in stone. But when you take a look elsewhere at this schedule, I mean, you got 10 straight games, and a lot of them, there are going to be some tough stretches for the San Jose State team. And the first is a little 2-game stretch right here. You got to play at home against Western Michigan. I think what's going to be a hard-fought game. I like some of the talent Western Michigan is, but I like a lot more of the talent that San Jose State has. That's why I'm leaning towards the Spartans when they play on September 24th. Then you go on the road to play Wyoming, and what's going to be an interesting game because Wyoming loses a lot off of last season. Now, that is a team that is bringing some talent in, bringing some talent back, but when you overall look at that Wyoming team, definitely not as talented of a team last season, and a team that struggled in Mountain West play. Now, again, I know Wyoming, a team that is capable of pulling off an upset or two here and there, but San Jose State going on the road to do it could be a game there. I'm leaning towards the Spartans just because I like more of their talent, but Wyoming's going to make that game competitive. I see you being able to beat some other teams here on the schedule. I see you being able to beat Hawaii, being able to beat New Mexico State, and being able to beat UNLV. I think all those teams are going to present their specific challenges, but all in all, I see San Jose State walking out with a win there. So if you split the first 2 games, or excuse me, I should say if you split the first 4 games, that's 2-2, and then if you win those 3 that I just mentioned there, you got 5-2 right there. So finding one more win. Well, I don't think it's going to come against Fresno State. Again, I think that's going to be one of the best teams in the Mountain West. Same thing with San Diego State. I also think that's going to be one of the better teams in the Mountain West Conference this year in the Aztecs. So both of those games, I think, are going to be very tricky, and they go on the road. That's why both those games are in orange. But then there's that tricky 4-game slate there at the end of the season. At home against Nevada. It's a Nevada team that loses a lot, even have a couple former Nevada players on the San Jose State team. But Nevada is a team that can push for a spot in a bowl game. And Colorado State, talked about them earlier today as of uploading this video. We know how much talent they're bringing in, including Jay Norvell at head coach. That's a team that expects to push for a bowl game. Of course, just talked about San Diego State. And then on the road against Utah State, that's still going to be a solid Aggies team with all that they've lost, and you have to go on the road to play them. But I think it's very more than likely possible that San Jose State wins at least one of those games in that 4-game stretch that I just mentioned, which is why I got this team at 6-6. I think Cordero coming in, if he can improve some things, is a 3,000-yard passer, has some really good weapons around him, and San Jose State possibly could have yet another breakout year in 2022. If you want a sleeper in the Mountain West, I'd pick this team right here. I like Cordero. I like their skill corps. I like their defense. Watch out for the Spartans this year, but I do have them safely in a bowl game at 6-6. That's going to do it for my talk on the Spartans, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe, anything like that to help support the channel. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.